Thank you. That was very visual, I think, showing how complicated these households have become and what that means for how wage changes or wage policies feed through to the household level and to the overall redistribution picture. But I think it gives me a chance to also not only comment on your policy implications at the end, but also to respond to some of the comments that were made with respect to by you and by Jan with respect to the redistribution effectiveness or not of minimum wages. I think it's too simplistic to say that they are ineffective. I think what is definitely true, as Wiemar has said, that just looking at the redistribution dimension is not enough and would be an unwise way to go about justifying a minimum wage or thinking about increases or adjustments of the minimum wage. But I think the incidence, is certainly quite complex. But I think it's not necessarily sufficient to look where the minimum wage earners are in the distribution and then say, okay, well, there's not that many at the very bottom, so it's minimum wage increases are not effective. That's only part of the story because there are indirect effects of minimum wage increases to people just above the minimum wage, just a little bit higher up, and those tend to be also concentrated at maybe not the lowest wage levels, but round about the poverty lines or the near poor, if you want. And in addition, minimum wage increases not only benefit minimum wage earners, but they benefit the families. And we know that household sizes and the number of children tend to be larger at the bottom. So some of the results in the US have shown that if you take into account children, then the picture changes quite a bit. And in any case, I think one of the best and even-handed empirical study for a particular country, because of course it differs a lot across countries, has been the Congressional Budget Office's 2014 report, where they said that the majority of minimum wage increases would go towards the bottom of the distribution and to families who need and individuals living in these families who need that support. But I think that was just to try and give a little bit more detail, because I think it's I wouldn't want to be quoted as saying that minimum wages are ineffective for redistribution. And I think what's particularly important is to think about efficiency. So what I've said now concerns the incidence of minimum wage increases. But targeting or incomplete targeting or leakage to the top is only a concern if the measure itself is very costly, if it has large efficiency costs, like other redistribution measures have efficiency costs, as we know, in terms of employment effects. But that brings us back to the employment obsession, if you like. That it may be an obsession, but it is important. We know that the efficiency costs are rather small. So even if the targeting is imperfect, it's not really a big concern if the measure is less costly than alternative redistribution measures. So I think it has to be seen in that light, and I think that also connects to, and I couldn't agree more, to the synergies between the minimum wage and other redistribution measures, particularly the earned income tax credit.
So this should not be a debate among people who ask questions, but I leave you to answer him. But I want to make so fair enough.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's generous. I don't think the statement is minimum wages are ineffective. they're inefficient. So there are better instruments to do redistribution. And the one brought up by Wiemer, earned income tax credits, are superior in two ways. One is they really take income, and it's household income in general, as the measure, and so, as the criterion. So you target it really at low-income households. That's the first interesting part. And the second is both a minimum wage, a higher minimum wage, or an earned income tax credit, make low pay work more interesting for the worker, but they have very different impacts on employers, right? A minimum wage, in a sense, is a tax on those who want to hire minimum wage earners. That's probably not the right way in which we want to go about solving the problems at the bottom of the wage distribution. So, in a sense, anchoring with the minimum wage and then topping up with the proposal that he gives seems very worthwhile to consider. So, no question.
Two more? Yeah. So let's have two more, and then probably not.
Okay, thank you. Just one short comment. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation, but I'm a bit worried about the interpretation. Is it really the case that people create households, come up with different combination strategies to achieve higher income levels, or maybe it's the other way around? It's because, for example, young people have limited access to well-paid jobs. They take what they can find on the labor market. Yes, they take low-paid jobs, but stay with their parents because they are not able to make a living on their own. So in this case, maybe rising the minimum wage could actually help solve this problem. Okay, thank you.
So I'll also join in the chorus of thanks for your very interesting and inspiring talk. And I'll follow up on Herwig's and Marcel's comment on the EITC and minimum wage combination. In some sense, it links up with Herwig's discussion on incidence of taxation and social security contributions. In some sense, if we want measures like EITC to be effective, there needs to be a floor for wages, because otherwise, if we think of a more of a general equilibrium world, then employers will cut wages, and essentially EITC will be a subsidy to the employers. So I think the fact that you bring it up as a combination of policies is very important, and I think it's important that it finds its place in the policy debate.
Yeah, just one brief remark. I mean, the issue of in-work subsidy, which is the instrument that you seem to advocate, was subject to research that we did in the Commission. I think in our either 2011 or 2012 European Social and Employment Development Report, SD, and what came out was interesting. I mean, an in-work subsidy could have also an impact on market wages in a way that if it's a subsidy given to the employer, there might be room for market wage increases even, whereas, as it was mentioned before, if it's a minimum wage, it could be perceived as a tax, which could have detrimental impact on market wages because it puts a burden on the employer. So indeed, you have to see how employees and employer react on such an instrument in order to be able to estimate to have an esteem on their long-term impact.
Maybe we'll let Wiemer to react, because we have already like 5 comments, so it's getting massive.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for mentioning the CBO report, but I think so there may be many children, relatively many children, if you look at the equivalent. So the equivalent. Does it work like this already?
No.
Maybe it takes some time. Yeah. I would be amazed to find that in the gross earnings distribution there would be more children at the bottom than at the top. So the very top might be still two earners who have no children and are working full-time. In that sense, I can agree with that. But generally, equivalization has a much stronger effect on higher gross incomes or higher net incomes than it has on lower incomes. So basically, the singles concentrate. But maybe that's different in the US, I don't know. So it would be interesting to find out if that's a real difference on the two sides of the Atlantic. I think that we're, I mean, that's my point of view on the minimum wage, that we are more free to deliberate on its level. So that might take into account efficiency effects, but might also take into account long-run productivity effects. I mean, that's the Swedish model. You don't like to have everything in low-wage work without any technological change or something. So it also has that effect. If you have an appropriate minimum wage, that it might encourage productivity development. So we have to factor that in. Well, fairness in the workplace. I mentioned that. So I don't directly see a minimum wage necessarily as a tax on employers. If I look back to 1945, immediately after the war in the Netherlands, employers and unions agreed that the minimum wage should be enough for a single breadwinner to maintain a family. So in that situation of the red thread and the entirely different political situation, you would have a different view on what is a tax or not, and you might actually agree with that. But that whole world has not only gone in political terms, but also that's what I show in the way the labor market works and households operate there. So I'm not inclined to immediately call it a tax. It might become a tax, but at the same time, and that's the other risk, that an EITC would become a subsidy. So you have to find your way somewhere in an optimal sense, not necessarily in the middle. So about the combination scenario. For sure there will be people, that's what I also said, there is also an effect on poverty. So people may combine their incomes to reduce poverty. And I think, I don't know anything about the composition of the households. I only know the number of earnings that they have. But quite likely there will be this huge share of multiple earner households in Bulgaria and Romania, and I think it also Slovakia, a few other countries where it's really much larger than in the other countries. There will certainly be an anti-poverty effect in that. So we need to sort it out, and you cannot easily say, well, we find them all the way to the top and that's it, and the rest is well paid. So there's more to it than that. But I think it's a direction of thinking about the issues that will help you to sort out the next questions. So I certainly agree that you should be more careful about that. Yeah, well, I think that's about all I have to say about it. Yep.
Thank you very much. Just a little remark about this. What you said about should we consider it as a tax for entrepreneur? Actually, it's also in terms of ideological orientation. You see. Excuse me for being harsh, yeah. If you consider labor force and minimum wage as costs and so on, we'll just value human life in terms of, let's say, exchange market, yeah. How much you can, you can sell, yeah, until people just die. You can short sale, you know, in the exchange market you have short sale. And actually, most of people do not have such a bargaining power, let's say, yeah, to buy. So, but many people have possibility to short. I mean, richer entrepreneurs. That's just I wanted to say.
I'd like to say one more thing. I think it's all so related to this, but what I forgot. See, I think the minimum wage could help certainly that big blue bit of single earners. And in a sense, what we would need optimally is a new social contract, how to organize solidarity if there in many households incomes are combined and in other households not by their own choice or by necessity, we don't know. And I think to go this way of a minimum wage and an EITC is in a sense a solution to that problem, because we will never get a general new social contract for this situation, because then it's so clear that solidarity is a difficult thing between 2 earners, 3 earners and single earners at the same level of earnings individually. Or so why would you be, while this, if you really focus on poverty of the household, that is the result. And the EITC, well, you will need to qualify for it, so there will be some restrictions there. I think that might be a solution to what otherwise would be an intractable problem to really get to a new general type of taxation and social contribution solution for this problem.
If that's all, then may I have a short one? I was wondering, because there is a process of job polarization and this hollowing up of middle-income jobs. And it's not that pronounced in Europe like in the US, but it's still happening that there are many more low-skilled and high-skilled and less middle-skilled jobs. And at the same time, people tend to form couples with kind of similar education levels, especially these days, similar age and stuff like that. So if it's really happening that the middle income jobs and the middle class is disappearing, then I would wonder how that, let's say, job polarization process impacts on the various types of households in terms of dual earner or single households affected by these processes to a different extent. Do you have any? Have you done anything on that?
I have some kind of opinion on it. See, that's exactly why I'm talking about a tale of two literatures. The job polarization literature is entirely on individual jobs and the distribution of that, and households may provide some of the solution to that problem. I think they have done that before. There's now polarization, but in the 1970s, 80s, swaths of manufacturing jobs have gone down the drain, which were maybe not high skilled, but certainly some were paid in the middle, not at the low end. So this has been happening before, and it seems to be one of the explanations that there are so many elderly women in the UK who have part-time jobs to make up for the loss of their husband's jobs in the 1980s. So I think we need much more analysis of the links between individual jobs and households to be sure what the outcome will be. Now, for sure, there is sorting or assortative mating, but if you add up the total, there's no increase. Only it's going to higher levels. So while before the most of the mating was at the low-skilled level, it's now moving to the high-skilled level. So that if people then actually both would work full-time, both have a job because of their education. But the combination scenario might tell you that there are also other possibilities. Then you have a problem. But even then, I think maybe the best way is to have an EITC and not particularly a specific tax on high-educated, high-paid and full-time working individuals. You cannot possibly introduce that. I think that might be negatively affecting your economy, but also have enormous social opposition. So again, I would advocate something like that. And maybe there will be more groups than qualifying for the EITC in the end, but so be it. And
thank you. if that's all, then I would like to move to the second part of our session. Thank you very much, Wiemer.